Great.
Hi Karamveer, how are you?
All good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good too. So first, introduce yourself.
Sure. So my name is Karamveer and I am in fourth year right now, pursuing bachelor's in computer science. And despite of me being in fourth year, I have managed to get around 3 years of experience in software development. I started as an intern, then got converted into full time at the same place, and then now try thinking of switching.
Okay, that's good. So which company you are working for?
It's Telus. So it's basically the company name is Simply Ask, but I we work for Telus as well. So Telus
Okay,
is our main client. So we do their projects. So I'm a contractor at Telus, but full time employee at Simply Ask.
okay. So what are all the technologies that you work on?
Mainly React frontend, and I also did some of the projects in Node.js, TypeScript, like for the backend. Then did some configurations for the Google Cloud as well. But mainly it was developing the components on the front end and like making it reusable and integrating with backend, those kind of stuff.
Okay, that sounds good. So let us start the interview. Okay.
Sure.
So the first question I have is why do we need React?
Good question. React is a great front end library that it it has many benefits. It is a single page application, but it uses router that allows you to have multiple routes within a single page application. React uses a diffing algorithm and it works on virtual DOMs, which makes it extremely fast as compared to the other front end technologies. And it is easy to use, easy to build. There are a lot of online resources for help as well.
Okay. So you mentioned virtual DOM, right?
Right.
It is. So what is virtual DOM? Can you explain that?
Sure. So virtual DOM is a copy of a real DOM. DOM is a document object model. Uh, yes, document object model. React uses two virtual DOMs. One holds the states of the previous of the real DOM, and whenever we make any change in the DOM, then it compares the two virtual DOMs between each other, and it uses a process. It uses a some algorithm called a diffing algorithm, and and then it takes the difference of two virtual DOMs and it uses the reconciliation process to update only the updated parts in the real DOM, and
Okay.
that's what makes React very fast because it only updates certain parts in the real DOM.
Okay. So have you ever seen how a virtual DOM looks like?
I haven't seen it, but I know it's a tree and it looks like a JSON object, just like a JSON object. So I
Okay.
I've seen a real DOM. So when we inspect into an element, then bottom where we have CSS, where we have styles, there we have an arrow. When we click on it, I think it's called properties or something.
Yeah,
And when we click
properties.
on it, it shows the child nodes and all that stuff. It shows the basically it's a JSON object.
Yeah. So in the same way, you did not see a virtual DOM, right?
No, but I'm pretty sure it would be in this. It would have a similar uh,
Yeah,
structure.
it has similar structure, and we can see like our app component, whole component, which we that is our main component, right, in React.
Right.
So if we just what we do, we put that app component inside index.js file or main.js file, depending upon if you're using CRA or Vite. So
Right.
we render it like from React DOM. We import one render method and render that application. So instead of rendering, we can do rendering also. Just put it inside a console logged app,
Mm,
and
right.
that whole app will show you the object like structure, parent child, like app is the parent component and its child and its
Makes
child.
sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. So, but it won't show two virtual DOMs though, right? We'll only see just one.
It will not show two virtual DOMs. Actually, you
Makes
will
sense.
not see all the childs if you do like this. You will not see all the childs. because on the object there will be one type property, and type will be a function. So the child will be generator, or child will be created on calling that function
Or
on
the
the
function
type.
call. Yeah.
So it is only function that you will see in the DevTools, but there is a way we can see that virtual DOM also.
Okay,
So
great. Good to know.
yeah, okay. So what is, you mentioned it has virtual DOM, it is fast. So there is one more question on this. Why virtual DOM is fast?
Uh, Again, I think I would take I would take to highlight some of the parts of my previous answer. It's fast because it uses a diffing algorithm to compare both of the DOMs, both of the virtual DOMs, and it only takes the difference of like whichever component is a different state than previous DOM.
And so why can't React do comparison between real DOM? Like it doesn't have to
So
modify the real DOM, just compare it, and whichever part is modified, it should modify that.
so instead of using two virtual DOMs, you are saying why it does not use one virtual DOM and one real DOM for
Yeah, it
comparison.
can do it. It can do one virtual DOM, one real DOM, or it can compare real DOM and real DOM. There should be no virtual DOM. It can make a
Hmm,
copy of real DOM also.
right.
Yeah. So why does it not do that?
Uh, I'm not sure. I've
Yeah.
never thought about. I've never thought in this much depth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why
It's
then?
okay. It is difficult. For that, we need to understand how they are doing it. So the short answer is not the short. The correct answer is on. If you check, you mentioned about properties tab, right? If you go on the properties tab, and let's say if we select h1 in the elements tab, then it will show the all the properties that are available on the h1 tag. And one element in DOM, one real DOM element, have thousands of properties. If you check, it will have lots of properties. Okay, like thousands. It can go up to 1,000 properties. But in virtual DOM, one element have maximum 7-8 properties. Like it has less properties, very less properties, 10 or 20 times less properties than the virtual DOM. That is why it is easier for us. Let's say you have to compare 1,000 property versus you have to compare 10 properties,
Hmm,
which will be faster
hmm,
to compare.
10.
Yeah.
Hmm,
So like those 10 properties, like mainly like DOM has lot of properties that we don't use it like regularly. Like it has lot of properties, and React has only few properties by default which are very frequently used. Okay, so other, if we want to add extra property, we can add in props and the props of that element. So any, let's say if we want to use some extra property, extra attribute we want to give, it will add only like from 10 it can increase to 12 depending upon on our usage. So
hmm.
it will never go to 1,000 like a real DOM. So that's why it does not compare real DOM with real DOM or real DOM with virtual DOM. It uses two virtual DOMs to compare itself.
Can you please give me some example of these properties that are not in the virtual but in the real DOM?
Yes. So, for example, if you create one h1 tag, let's say, right? So, on h1 tag, we can give a property content editable. You know that?
Okay. Yeah.
Content editable true. But in virtual DOM, in React, we don't, it is very rarely used property, right? We don't use it very often.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Never.
it will not be part of virtual DOM at all until you specify it.
Use it.
Yeah.
Okay. 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 So
Okay.
it
So
abstracts. most of the properties, and it only includes them when it's used in the React.
Yes. So only when we use it will be present. But it doesn't matter if you use content variable true or not on H1. If you just create H1 and put hello world inside it, it will have all the possible properties which can be
Oh,
present. Okay. So
good to know.
yeah. Okay. So I have explained this on my React video on virtual DOM. There is one virtual DOM video. What is virtual DOM? I have explained all this. If you want to see all those things in depth, you can watch that. Like if you just search
Sure,
virtual DOM and my name or channel name, it will come.
sure.
Okay. Okay. So what is the difference between state and prop?
State and props.
Yes.
State, like the use state, right?
Yes.
So just use states are
One
just
second.
the
Now the question, I will change the question a little bit. What is the difference between use state and state?
uh, what do you mean by state? Do you mean like derived state?
Not derived state. Now, in order to tell the difference, what is the difference between use state and state? First, you will have to define what is state, what is use state. So,
Hmm.
if you could define what is state.
State. So I'll start with the use state. Use state is a hook in React that lets you create a setter and getter of any variable, and then whenever that variable updates, React re-renders the component.
Yeah.
That is the use state. And by state, I'm assuming just the variable that holds some data.
Yes, that is correct. But we can create in if your definition is like this, then we can create a state using const data equal
Right.
to some object or something.
Correct. Yeah.
So can we call that variable also a state?
Yes, I think so. I think so. If it uses some state inside of the uh, like on the right side of the equals to, then we can call it a derived state. But if
Yeah.
it's just an object with some
Normal
constant value,
it's a, let's say, normal object with name property hard coded to your name or some name.
hmm, I think so. Yes, we can call it a state then.
Yeah. So in terms like normally in general we can call it a state. Okay.
Right.
But when it comes to the concept of React and the nomenclature of React, we call those variables state. Upon changing those variables, our UI will re-render. Okay.
Like use state.
Yeah, like use state. Is there any other way to create a state instead of using use state?
Yeah, you can use a use ref, but it does not re-render though. It
Yeah,
does not
so
re-render
we
the
will not call that state.
right.
In
Right.
like
We can
yeah.
call it maybe we can pass props, but I don't think so. That would be considered a state. We can pass props, and then whenever the props change, then again the
Yeah,
component
then
re-render.
but on the parent you have use state, right?
Again,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
so
The
on the parent also I don't want you to use
use
state.
state.
And
Uh,
by like I'm talking about functional component. In class-based components, we can use state and there is no hook. We have to use this dot state property. So let's not go into that. Only in functional
okay.
component, is there any other way to create a state? When I say state, that means a variable which like whenever we change that variable, our UI will re-render.
We have things. I don't think so. We have hooks like use memo, but that's not really. I don't think so. That's not really what you're asking.
Yeah,
I don't think.
use memo is for a different purpose.
Yes, it's for a different purpose. Yeah, I cannot recall any other hook that we can use. We have use ref, use state, use memo, callback, use reducer, use context, but they all have no. I'm not sure.
Okay, so all the hooks name you just mentioned, there is one hook that creates a state. You
Use
just
context.
skipped. No,
Okay,
no,
I I skipped the name, or did
no,
I
no.
say the name?
You skipped. You did not. You just told the name, but you
Oh,
did
I
not stop on that.
use reducer.
Yeah, it is use reducer.
Yes, use reducer. We can also use that. Mostly, I've used it with the in the combination of use context. It
Yeah,
makes very powerful. But
yeah.
yes, yeah, use reducer is also used to create basically reducers. And,
Uh,
yeah.
so even if you, it is mainly used with context hook,
Yes,
but you can use it without use context hook. And if you change it, change the variable, dispatch the action, the UI will re-render without using user state.
that's a good point. Yeah, but again, I've all most of the time I've used it with use context, so it did not came across my
Yeah,
mind.
it's
Good.
okay. So now if I ask you what are the ways we can create a state in our React app, what will be your answer?
I would say there are two ways. One would be
Yeah,
use state, and the second would be with
yes,
use reducer.
that's correct. Now if I ask you what is the way to track our state
Track,
changes? Yeah, if our state is changing or not.
like, you want to execute something on state change, or you
Yeah,
just we can
yeah,
use
yeah, exactly. So we can use use effect whenever uh, like
the
whenever
dependency array.
in the dependency area. I forgot that. Yeah, in the
It's okay.
dependency area we can pass any variable we want to track, and whenever that variable will change, it will call uh, that thing. Yes. So like
Right.
there are ways in our React application we can create a state, we can track state. Okay. This is how
Okay.
we need to think. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you use Wheat or CRA?
Mostly CRA. I have recently started using White, but mostly it has been CRA.
Okay, so did you notice the speed difference when creating?
Yeah.
And so if you did you work on any big project using Wheat?
Yes. Yes.
Using
Yes.
Wheat.
I have. Yes.
Yeah, so did you notice the reload difference? Is it fast?
It's much faster. Yeah.
Yeah, it is much faster, right? Why it is faster?
The reason, from what I understand, is what White does. It uh, kind of bundles all of the dependencies and like the npm modules, the import statements. Like, let's say we are using material UI and we have a component where we are importing a lot of material UI stuff. Then when we run the that particular component for the first time, it takes long because it caches all of the import statements and it saves it somewhere locally. The second time when we run the same component, like we start the server, it is much faster because it has the old cache for all of the imports and all of the dependencies. I think that's what makes it fast.
Yeah, if it is so, then why CRA? CRA uses Webpack, right?
Webpack. Yeah.
So can't they use caching? That is very old thing. Like caching is not a new term.
Right, it is not.
Yeah,
Hmm,
it's okay.
they should
Uh,
have used it, but they did not.
uh, Actually, whatever caching if they are doing, they can do. Both will do. Okay. It is not
Okay.
faster because of the caching. It is faster, like you know this, that this JSX file or this JSX syntax or any of these things does not run on the browser, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Babel and Webpack together, they will convert it to normal JavaScript code, and
Right.
they will also like what we can say, build one file, one JavaScript file, right?
Right.
And that one JavaScript file will be served to our HTML, our browser. So that building step takes time. So Webpack, what it does, it takes, let's say you have created 10 components, and you will create 10 files, 10 JSX files, 10 JavaScript files. So those 10 files will not be served onto the browser while doing development. Only one file will be served, that will be the
But
bundle.js.
change.
Yeah, after
Right.
it can be named anything, but that is the idea. But
Right.
in case of Vite, what it does not bundle while development. While production, if you deploy it, it bundles. It does the same thing. But in
Okay.
development, it uses ES6 modules to serve all these files as components. Like it will serve all 10 files. Let's say if we have 10 pages, so it serves 10 those 10 files, and on one page we always don't need all the components. Like if we have 100 components, all the 100 components will not come on the one page, right? So on one page, whichever, let's say 5 components are being used, so it will serve those 5 components file without building. And now you may ask that why Webpack cannot do this, why only Vite can do, right? So ES6 modules are new thing to JavaScript. Earlier it was not there, and Vite is very new. It was released in 2019. I don't know, but only 2-3 years back. Earlier we used to use CRA, right?
Right.
So since ES6 modules came late, that Vite was developed, and before that we had Parcel, we have Webpack, and they used to do the things older way. Okay.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, good to know. Yeah, I knew about the CRA bundle thing. It even if when we inspect, it shows the import for the bundle.js. It's like static slash bundle.js in the DOM itself. I
Yeah.
knew about that, but good to know about how it actually how white actually works.
Yes. So now one more question. Do you know about source maps?
No, what is
Okay.
source map?
Okay, it's okay.
Is
So
it like
I
the
will.
hash map, like the new map?
No, 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 no. It is not. It has nothing to do with that.
Okay.
So whenever you are developing, you have written TypeScript code.
Yes.
So yeah. So TypeScript or JSX code, we know that these files do not run in our browser.
Right.
But whenever you put a console log, whenever you debug in DevTools, those files are visible. We can see that this console log is coming from line number 12 from app.jsx file.
Yes, it shows the number here.
Yeah, line number it shows. And app.jsx also it shows. If it is app.tsx, it will show app.tsx. How it
Right.
is possible? Browser cannot run those files, then how it is showing?
Hmm. I assumed using source maps.
Yeah, so source maps. Actually, our browser is not running at all those files, but it's still just showing that from line number this console log is coming. So
I
source
think
maps,
the
yeah,
I think the library takes care of this stuff, not the
yes.
browser.
Actually, both things work together. Like
Hmm.
this library or this whichever compiler you are using, Babel or anything else, it will bundle your code, it will minify your code, and also it
Hmm.
will generate a source map. How it will generate a source map? Basically, it will map all the lines from original file to the minified file, like which code corresponds to the original code. Okay, and it will generate one, we can say, JSON kind of thing. It is not exactly JSON syntax, you will not understand it, but it is JSON. Okay, so now that source map file is understood by browser's DevTools. So whenever you request a file from the browser, browser DevTools automatically sends a request to its source map file. And if it finds the source map file, it uses that source map file to debug, to show all the line numbers from where it is coming. If it doesn't find, then it will use the original file. And it will be very hard to debug. It will be very hard to develop if we don't have source maps. And we are
Yes,
using it.
definitely.
Yeah, we are
Definitely.
using it without paying any attention to it, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so on source maps also I've made a detailed video exactly how it works. It is not only for JSX, CSS, it is not only for JSX, TSX files, but also for SCSS files. We write like
Yes, yes,
other
yeah.
frameworks, we can say, of CSS or some
Yeah.
preprocessors. So it works for all kind of development technologies. Okay.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So what are hooks?
Hooks are there are two types inbuilt hooks that React provides. Use state, use effect. Basically, they are just kind of some reusable code that we can use across. We can just import and use across anywhere our components. They are very powerful and they have different purposes. For example, as we just discussed in the past about the use state and the use reducer hook, then there is also use effect,
Yeah.
and we can also create custom hooks using the, and we can also import inbuilt hooks in the custom hooks.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we can reuse that particular custom hook anywhere in the app.
Yeah. So can you tell one example when do we use custom hook, or when did you use custom hook?
I've used it for the making the API calls, the API requests in the past. Like each call will have its own dedicated hook, like
Okay.
one hook for the post call, one hook for the get call, and
Mm,
then we can just import that hook anywhere in the component wherever we want to use, make the
mm.
same API calls, and it
Okay.
just runs.
Yes, that's good. So if you can show that by writing code, that will be very good. So can you write a custom hook?
For API call,
Yeah, for anything that you think it does make sense to use custom hook. So whichever you are comfortable with. If you have any other example which you think it will be easier and faster, you can do that. Otherwise, you can do API call, anything. Just create
sure.
a custom hook and use it. Share your screen.
Can I use query? I use that a lot for making API calls.
Yeah, you can use. You can